Ready, set, go.
All right, greetings, beloveds. Welcome to our very beautiful chat space. This is the second episode where we'll be talking about mass exodus. Last time we were talking about being church hurt, and we did say that this will lead to this conversation because we were talking about people who are leaving the church for reasons that, we did discuss on the podcast.
Yeah.
Go to it, watch it, and maybe it will be helpful as we continue on with this one.
Yeah.
We are talking about the mass exodus, the leaving of people from the church, because in our times, it is clear that more and more people are not in a space where they subscribe to a religion. We're not just talking about being Christian, a religion, right?
True.
But because we are Christians, we're going to be focused on the Christian church.
Yeah.
So, as compared to the past generations, our generation is finding it more and more to be useless to go to church for them.
Yeah.
So there's a study that has shown that a lot of the people that actually leave the church are young people.
Yeah.
Young people in different spaces. And so this is a conversation that we'll be having today about the mass exodus. So what do you guys think is the reason towards why, as young people, you feel like young people do feel like they don't need to be in church anymore?
Yeah. I think since people come, I think I remember looking at the Banner study.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pull it up now, so this is exposing me for my lack of preparation. But I remember having a look, and I think it was around 50 to 60% of millennials saying they don't see the importance of church.
Yeah.
And those are our peers.
Yeah.
No, it's 45% millennials and then around 60-something% of Gen Z.
Yes.
So because some of the stuff, it's church, they don't understand me, or church is boring, or they don't want to listen. So for them, it feels like church is not engaging. So you go there, you listen to one person, and you have a set of rules you need to obey, and that's it. There's not that space of communion and relationship. And with this generation, especially my 2000 or Gen Z, for them, relationships are important.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you see this even when it comes to trainings at work and how to engage them. There are people who are more relational.
Yeah.
Abafani nathi where, well, we are also millennials. I'm not trying to expose anyone's age here, but you know what I mean. But we understand instructions because we are from that generation go to Mama Uti, and you don't ask why.
Yeah.
But also we know Uti that can also create a bridge. But the generation before us, they are people of instruction.
Yeah.
Uti, Mama, uyenza so, Baba, uyenza so. We've been doing this for generations, and it's been working. Yes, and we don't question it because it works.
Yeah.
But with these guys, it's a matter of let's talk. I don't understand why I must be ending or 6. Yes, you know what I mean. So church then becomes that thing for them to say, one person speaking instruction, don't wear that skirt, don't be around those people, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, 10 commandments type of thing. We don't want to engage in that. So I think, and also from that study, it's one of those things where you realize that's why we don't have a lot of young people in the church. And even if we do, let's be honest, they're not as committed.
Yeah.
Because one can say, but now I've not seen that exodus. But are those people consistent?
Yeah.
Are those people part and parcel of what you guys are trying to build as a church? Or when you guys want to be serious about stuff, about church stuff, you guys call the elders. Because young people are not going to show up.
Yeah.
So I think that's partly it. Guti, they feel Guti, there's no relationship. It's instruction, and they don't get to be listened, and there's that stigma around church.
So do you think that it's more because the current generation is more liberal than the past generation? Because what I hear from you is the values have changed, and so the current generation of young people just happen to be people who feel more liberal than conservative about things.
Also, can I just interject? I think it's more the inclination to self than inclination to community. Because as Brother Gift was just talking about, like the generation before us, and then us as millennials. So obviously, the generation before us were strict people, like people of order. Okay, this is how it's always been done, and this is how we're always gonna do it.
Do this.
And like you do this, and like we have always done this way. Like, please, who are you? That's how they spoke. And then it came to us. We understand the instruction, but we also had the reservation to say, but this instruction, is it really beneficial? So now, but they are picking up from that. So millennials, this instruction may not really be beneficial. So Tina, we are asking ourselves, is it gonna benefit me? So there are more people who want things that benefit them more than community, because the ones before us, they're all about community. If it serves the purpose in the community, even if it harms me, I'm okay. But when they are more, this is about me. If the vibe is not communicating, it's not communicating for me.
It's the music,
like, please,
the setup.
Like, no, the setup. Like, what do you mean I have to wear a skirt?
Yes,
like,
why?
Nike Mamela Hillsong.
True. So they are more about what's comfortable to them and what speaks to them. So that's what I'm saying. It's more inclination to yourself than
personal.
It is a community. So it's not that they have completely lost the instruction of it, but they're just more inclined to things that they can relate to more. So that comes to the relation part as well.
I think based on what she's saying, I think then they are not solely to blame, although they are partly to blame. Because Nati, let's be honest, the gospel that we're preaching is a gospel of self. Let's be honest, at the center of the message, it's about God is, I don't know what you're going through, but God is going to do this for you. That's the gospel. When did you go to church and you guys were taught about Jesus and it didn't come back to you to say, this is how you're going to benefit? Or when did you guys go to church and they were teaching about a topic like prayer?
Do you think that the reason why you are open to thinking in that manner is because you are a millennial?
Yes, there's balance, and also there's grace of God. We're not saying we know these things, but that's what I'm observing to say. It's because of how I grew up. We know two sides of the
we're like the middle child.
You know what I mean?
Like
the 6, and we also know how to say, I'm not going to do that with my child. Because it also influences the kind of parents we are. Some of how we grew up, we don't take everything to our kids. I don't think that was, but this one was wisdom. And then, you know what I mean? We are the ones who are trying to balance the scales. But also, going back to the gospel and how church is. Church now, it has become liberal. And I'm at 2000 are finding church liberal. And if you are a church that is a bit more conservative, you guys are legalistic. You guys are strict. And Ibuela back to, let's be honest, some of the preachers you can't distinguish from a preacher and a motivational speaker. I love TD Jakes, he's amazing. But I had a friend who listened to TD Jakes for motivation. And this guy was opening verses, but that guy was saying, I listened to TD Jakes for motivation. And he was not a believer. So this tells me, Guti, it's more of a gospel that says this is how you're going to benefit, this is how you can succeed, this is how you can thrive. And I'm a 2000 love that. But unfortunately, if that's not found in their spaces, they're not going to leave that church.
That's amazing, because we're talking about, a gospel that has been around for a long time. But what's impressive about being Christian as well is because it transcends times. Can you think about how many things have changed and Christianity has remained relevant in all those spaces? Because it is amazing to find what someone can listen to TD Jakes and say, okay, fine, I might not be as religious, but this man resonates with me and makes me hopeful for the day. Because I think as a church as well, there are things that I can say, well, in terms of how we play our role, we have conservative people who are saying things should be done in this way, which are our elders. because one of the scariest things about our generation is that we are inching closer to a space where we are becoming the elders. So we are becoming more and more critical about these things. We are saying, abantu abadala, yes, you're right. But, some of the things you have to talk to these people the way they understand, because we understand this generation. We might not like them, but we understand how they became the way we might not, because the reason I'm talking about liking them is because we understand what they are taking the liberal thing up there.
Their volume is all the way up.
We understand having an opinion. But we also know being in a space where you respect principle and law, because both of them, they help. We understand that Jesus Christ didn't abolish the law, he fulfilled it. But they make it seem like it does not exist. So which is where we end up in a space where we're like, hey Nina,
I worship team.
Man, there are certain things that you have to go through, and there's a process of doing certain things which they would like to just avoid altogether. But in that space, as a church, what I feel like we are, because as a church we're so big, and the thing is with institutions that are this big is that once you want to change something, it becomes very difficult to change it all together or all at once. Because, for example, we can talk about spaces where, the next generation does not learn the way you're trying to teach them. But then how do you change that overall? Because abantu abadala who are in the church, they will tell you, Tero ke batla ebejina, or this is preaching. You have to jump up and down. You have to whoop. We don't understand lendaba yakho ukuthi ume usibheke usitshela ukuthi le vessel thine and then uzama ukuqhaqa. What's that? Like, what is that? Give us the run around. Siscream esontweni. Although sophuma maybe singazwanga next, but we need the power. That's church. But for the more, for the current generation, they actually listen to you. They actually listen to you and they're like, Utini.
True, man.
You cannot say one thing, Ujona wavula incwadi noma Ujona wayenzani 6 times. Already they're disconnected. They're like, I'm not connected.
No, that's true.
Like, you are actually not speaking. You're not communicating. So being in that space where we're like, okay, how do we take the scriptures that are very important and teach it to this generation that once it's clearly made up for them? Okay, I understand what happened to Jonah. But I also need to understand how does that apply to me. Speak to me. Speak to me. Don't tell me about Jonah's journey. If you're going to tell me about Jonah, after telling me about Jonah, relate it to me. Let's see you do that. Because for example, what I feel like is important about what we're doing here is that we're understanding there is a platform upon which this helps. For example, these podcasts and everything. There is a student right now who's in varsity who cannot go to church. This student is exposed to different things. You get to a space where you experience things in a different way, and you're not always in the cocoon of your church. Because when you are at your local church, you are very, protected. Everyone is for you, and abantu abadala, they cocoon you. You get exposed to a world where you will meet an atheist for the very first time, and you don't know how to deal with this person because they think totally different from you. And uma wako or ubaba wako or that auntie okuthandayo esontweni naleya mfundisi okuzela amakhekhe abekho. So now you're in a situation where you have to deal with the people who think differently. And that community does not exist as okhuluma now in this space. They say, hey, we understand. Like we understand the fact that you're going through these things and you're going to meet these people, but this is how you deal with them.
Yeah.
We do not create this space.
No, we don't.
We don't create this space. And that
it's tricky. I think you touched on different ways we do things and generational gaps as well.
Yeah.
Mama normally prefer inchumayelo tease, you know, and I see that. And then you get to certain spaces where inchumayelo tease is appreciated. For example, she knows.
By she, he means
my wife. Yes. There's just one. When I get invited to a church in Ukuluma, we joke around this, but I'm like, but the fact that already that's a thought, it means I know abazalwane are people of preference.
Yeah.
Or and you want to teach in the calm voice, but yeah. And then more figure up, you shout, you repeat words 7 times and they want that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this generation is not a generation that is drawn to that.
Yeah.
They want you to break down the scriptures.
Yeah.
They want you to reveal Jesus in the scriptures. They want you to even more reference the scripture. The reference must make sense.
Yeah.
And even when you connect Genesis to Revelation, it must make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you say, they meet a atheist who does that.
Who does that?
They quote facts, they quote Einstein, they quote the physics formula.
You meet historians that will challenge your thought process. They'll be like, Nini.
Show me historical evidence of the church, historical evidence of... Because... And then they are drawn away to that. So I think we have made church sometimes all about preference. Rather than necessarily checking the times and the seasons to say, this season of believers or this generation of believers is a generation of scriptures. Yeah. Maybe there was a generation of Itende and God was working. But this generation, this time Unkulunkulu wants us to sit down and open the scroll. So even us not discerning and not even... Because sometimes in Tosienza, we blame the mass exodus or people leaving the church to their rebellion. And what about Mamamel? And it's not like this is the first generation in Mamamel. Jesus was saying, what will I lack in this generation? You know what I mean? Who Jesus had issues with this generation? The generation of Gomorrah and Somora, these people. They were from with angels. Hey, these guys, you know what I mean? Like every generation has just been crazy. But we think this one is the evil. No. Yes, they have been evil and they might be amongst the evil or rebellious. But God is also saying, discern the times.
Yeah.
So how do you best approach?
Yeah.
Things like podcasts win people over. Yeah. Things like social media win people over. One-on-one interactions win people over.
Yeah. Get to where the people are. It's really fascinating. Here's something that will blow your minds. One study has shown, at least for our generations, the recent ones, us millennials, number 2000, 2000, 23.
Yes. You, they're not a teenager.
I know.
Understand?
You are done with varsity, ne?
I always
23.
You're first year come 17 or something.
Yo.
Guys, time flies.
Yo.
Hallelujah. I brought it into perspective.
Wait, so I know I'm off the rail. So does Gen Z still mean from 2000?
Gen Z, I believe so.
Because Generation Z means Generation 2000.
Yeah.
So is there another word that comes after Gen Z, or is it still Gen Z the standard?
I think there's still Gen Z. I'm at 2010.
No, not nothing yet.
We'll Google it. We'll tell you. We'll put you in that. Yeah. So the thing is, there's a study that has proven that actually the dropout of a lot of people from churches or from religion has related a lot to a decline in marriages. So the thing is, you get it. So with the boomers and that age, they used to get married and get married young, like very early. So
19,
yeah. And then there came the next generation. They still were like getting married, but their social platform, it got up to a point where it was like, because this is going to be a little controversial, but with women's liberal movements, it pushed that idea of independence.
There's nothing controversial about that. It's the truth. Maybe our lady, Miss Namang, I don't know, maybe. Before he continues, maybe if...
Why are you guys...
There's a reason why you are here, and we need you to clarify.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
So with the women's liberal movements, it gave that rise to a lot of young women seeking independence. And you remember there was a time when marriage was not only social or about companionship, but it was also financial.
Yes.
Because as a young woman, if you are unmarried in those days, who's going to take care of you?
Yeah.
And also, besides that, even if you had the capacity to try to take care of yourself, you were not allowed to. Because women were not allowed to buy property by themselves, They were not allowed to own assets by themselves, basically. So a lot of women in those days married so that they could acquire some sense of stability when it comes to livelihood.
Exactly. So you get into that space and you have a lot of marriages. You have a lot of marriages. So there was that space where there was that, and then the women liberal movements came through. Women started getting jobs. They started seeking out independence. And then they started being in a space where they're like, why exactly must I get married for economic reasons? So I
can enjoy the benefits of marriage outside of marriage.
Yeah.
It's not even about enjoying the benefits outside of marriage. It's if I'm gonna be married to you only because you're gonna help me buy a house, then what good is that for me?
So we had a lot of choice in that generation, which pushed down marriages. And then came the more social reasons of, being in an independent space. So what's mean? I just want to... there was a time when that became, with the liberal movements also came the sexual independence and exploration within those times. Because everyone besekazenzela into yakhe namachita washadi, they don't need to now yasebenza. So there was a lot of like new thinking in the air. Which, just blocked a lot of reasons why people felt like they needed to get married. And then, so we are in a platform now where the only reasons for marriage become religion and companionship. So in a space where a lot of marriages aren't happening because, marriage did this for the people. It made you in a space where both your parents are married. And the structure of family that you understand is that we are Christian, Giti. We are going to raise our children in a Christian way.
Yeah.
So for you as a young person, living in a space where your parents are Christian, getting married for you means, okay, we are going to lead our lives in this manner. Because that is family to you. You understand the religious reasons behind why you should get married and raise your children in a Christian way. And you are also in a space where you are like, for some people, Christianity or religion always pushed for marriage because there was a reason. There was a time when getting married was because of my faith. Otherwise, I could just do my thing. But because I'm a Christian...
What things?
Hey, so there was a space where people were like, you know what? I'm going to get married for religious reasons. So the decline of marriages and everyone being in a new space of understanding has pushed down this young people should stay in church. Because I can have a totally different life. I can hang by myself. I can be as independent as I want to be. Imagine a structure where now siyasebenza C2, and then now in some people's spaces or in some people's lives, it's difficult to be in a space where you're both hardworking and then you're raising a family and also have to go to church and also have to do this and also have to do that. Some people can do it, but now we are in a space where we are finding new ways to live with this structure that is uncommon for our generation. And that has led to a lot of young people finding, now I'm just going to go out and do it by myself. Because even in church, we don't normally address these things. Or it's okay. For example, what system do you know of as a Christian that promotes marriages in church?
Are we supposed to promote marriages?
Are we?
I think but I think for
this is just one of the reasons.
Is one of the reasons. I actually wanted to comment on I think why it actually worked, but I just want us to touch. I want to speak on this. Oguti, in church and as Christians, we advocate for marriage because God advocates for marriage. And we know there are exceptions for singleness, though, in scripture. We'll talk about that. We don't want to be touching on that. But in the institution around Kulungul, it's God's brilliant idea. And we know the benefits and the fruits of it. We see this in the garden already. God decides a man and a woman must... What's up?
You forgot to switch that on.
No, it's fine. You want to switch it on?
No. So on the next episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you see the benefits of that. But I also want us to Kulumoguti, I think also it makes sense. Everything you've said is true. And Noguti, it makes sense, Noguti, the moment there's a decline in marriages, there will obviously be a decline in young people being saved or being in church. Yeah. Because I look at my life now, for example, whatever we were married, and we have a son.
Yeah.
Everything we're teaching him is the Christian way of life.
Yeah.
Because both of us are Christian.
Yes.
And umtana ukula outside of that space does not get invested in it because I born.
Yeah.
It's even weird that you find even young people going to church.
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe it's same for you. Yeah. I was the only one saved in till today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the collapse in the structure of family has led to the collapse in young people going to church.
It's a huge contribution.
Exactly. Because there's no structure now. Let's be honest, marriage, we're in this generation where we think marriage is about two people and what. Yeah. Marriage was a community thing.
Yeah.
Marriage is a community thing. But the fact that marriage is a family thing, it means marriage is a community thing.
Yeah.
So when God designed marriage, it was to benefit community. Because there are other things that we don't look into in terms of marriage.
Yeah.
Marriage was there to do away with sexual immorality.
Yeah.
Was there to do away with STDs. It was there to do away with abuse of women, because even in the Roman culture, a woman who was not married would likely be a prostitute. You know what I mean? So it was meant... I think you touched on the laws, did not necessarily have rights in a way.
Yeah.
So even for them, it was a safe haven, it was a safe space. Even for a man, would do things. You know what I mean? So it was there to create a structure and to safeguard and keep people.
And also, let's look at the time that most young people leave the church.
Yeah.
It's around that stage where they find independence. So look at the 19, 20s going upwards.
Yeah.
That's around the time when, in the past, you'd be going towards getting married.
So they'll be eligible for marriage at that time.
Yeah. It was... Look, you're in a family now. You're on a structure where you understand God is a community. And, marriage was something that was very healthy and fruitful for that generation. Yeah. So it's definitely, the correlation is mighty there.
Correlation is there.
Okay, so would you then say that the mass exodus is also like an attack to marriages?
I would say that the mass exodus is highly influenced by the lack of marriages. I wouldn't say
so. The lack of marriage is a cause, not the effect.
It's sort of like, for example, if I said attacking marriages is actually attacking the institution that was built by God. Attacking marriages is like attacking Christianity. It's affecting marriage is affecting, like, is the one that's pushing for a mass exodus, because everyone feels me, and forgets about the entire community in that sense.
So when we started the topic, right, because we were talking about Gen Zs and their inclination to self, and like the Holy Spirit just dropped 2 Timothy chapter 3 from verse 1. So I'm just going to read it. It says, "You should know this, Timothy, that in the last days there will be very difficult times. For people will love only themselves and their money. They will be boastful and proud, scoffing at God, disobedient to their parents and ungrateful. They will consider nothing sacred. They will be unloving and unforgiving. They will slander others and have no self-control."
That kind of that's everything we've been talking about in pieces for the last 30 minutes. Like, it's just what it is. We are in a space where we're so liberal that we feel like nothing affects me. I'm just me. I'm gonna get my money. I'm gonna be independent. I'm gonna soft life. I mean, I'm gonna show these people.
Yeah. Go to Instagram now. Go to Facebook. Go to WhatsApp statuses. It's me achieving, me getting ahead of life.
Hey, Papa, you see married people where you're like, where is your wife? I see you all over.
Where's your wife?
Exactly. Like, how are you alone?
Yeah.
You get
because
mass exodus.
We'll touch on in the Wemshat. No, I'm trying not to go there because we're gonna discuss that. We can only discuss so much. Yeah. I think before Savala, let's then say, how do we curb this?
How do we curb this?
Let me put my 5 cents. I think when it comes to this, as a church or as a believer, we must ask God for strategies. Because sometimes we think Nkulunkulu is not someone who's strategic. When Paul speaks of the armor of God, he says you must stand so that you can be able to overcome the strategies of the devil or the schemes. So this tells me the enemy is strategic and he schemes. He doesn't attack, he schemes. So why don't we also ask God for the same way? In this generation, give us strategic ways to win this generation over. And if Itend is not going to do it, it's fine. If Umvangeli, unfortunately, can't do it over this group of people, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong, the fivefold is moving mightily. But sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean, because as church we've always done this thing. Guti crusade, surely, no. Maybe it's time we knock on doors. Maybe it's time we utilized our social media platforms. Maybe it's time we had these sit downs and say, why in Hamba? You know what I mean? Because every generation has its own things. And this doesn't necessarily mean Unkulunkulu won't use a crusade. He will, because I'm blessings on a crusade. But it's not longer the 80s, unfortunately. Maybe crusade will be the only way people will be saved. You spoke about podcasts. Podcasts, people blessing, so you get messages, amen. I was going through this and now I'm fine, because they just listened to your video. They just, you know what I mean? So I think one of the ways we care as a church, we need to set out for strategic ways. Give us wisdom to win this generation. Whatever it takes, even if it means we have to have Ama Youth Camp I5, we'll do it. Even if it means to record Ama Sermon Way too, we'll do it. You know what I mean? Because we want to reach the masses.
Yeah, that's very important. That's very important. Strategy is everything. And it's very important, actually, because just thinking about, for me, I think one of the ways is to bring that community structure back. And I feel like one of the ways that we can push that is by engaging with that youth. Because think about it. In a church, Sunday school is very successful. I don't know how they do it, but the Sunday
schools are dying, guys. Sunday schools are dying, and then I think it has a ripple effect on mass exodus. Because if you don't teach them when they are 7, you can't expect them to be bamba 15.
That's true.
Like, I'm sorry, but when you say Sunday schools are also dying, let's just be honest.
Yeah, no, but you're raising a very important factor there, because with Sunday schools, the lessons that they're learning, I have no idea. I don't want to lie. But I can tell you with the numbers, children will drag each other to Sunday school and tell you how fun it is. And but what they learn there, I have no idea how it impacts their lives. But I just know they are very, very baning. Maybe from my church, abantwana baning, and they just be packed there.
Beautiful.
With abantabadala, they already have their system that worked for them, and the baning in Abesontweni. With young people, there's really not anything happening. Like, it's very quiet. And what I'm beginning to understand is the fact that we don't have structures that enable them of the transition that's happening within their lives. Because 19, 20, there's a big transition that's happening in your life there. When you go to varsity, you're learning responsibility. You're learning to be by yourself. And straight from varsity, you're going into a space where you're working. You're making money. Now, what do you do with that money? You know, you're in a space where you're like, okay, I have money. I live by myself. Cool. What do I do with my money? How do I have fun? I will tell you that in that year, you will see 1,000 Burna Boy concerts, 1,000 Pop Smoke concerts, but you will have that one joyous celebration moment. Ne? And joyous celebration will not be as pushed as all these other things. And we are saying, no, when I since we are schooling, and stuff, but we didn't create an environment where they can learn what's okay. At church, I can have fun like this. I can have these moments where I spend my time in this manner. And also on the issue of, let's say, marriages, on the issue of dating itself. I feel like the church is way more nonchalant with it as like, Ngatibati, I was as Bonella. You will see what wins and lapo. Just scope around now. Make the right decision. We're not going to tell you how. Just make the right decision. And if you make the right decision, we will applaud you. Make the bad decision and we will crucify you for it and tell you how sinful you are. You've lost your way. You have lost your way. But what way was I supposed to go about this?
Because we make marriage seminars, not single seminars. So for social deal, then we can have those serious talks. But before Shata, we're not going to talk about sex. We're not going to talk about. And now you like send Ketile, imagining Chaloguti, Funega Sindis. And one and send him Ketile, Funing Chaloguti, he must be a Christian now. But
yeah, I think the single, for me, I feel like the church should definitely focus more on speaking to those teens, to those young people about singleness and about the transition of going from single to married. You know, gather those people in that space where you're like, hey, single people, we know what you're going through. Even if you are in a relationship right now, we have this advice for you. What marriage seminars are great, guys, but the Bible is packed with advice for married people. It is packed. You can unwrap it. You can like maning scripture. Yeah, but with that transition from single to married, that's a big one. But we'll talk about that on our next episode about loving like Christ. So stay tuned. It's been a great pleasure for myself, Jotam Puti.
Sis P, I think we didn't give it a chance to say.
No, I'm fine.
Sis P, be the one who like leads us off. Thank you very much. Sengu Valley.
No, manga kuluma ngizosula yonke lento seyikhulumekile. So I just want to say thank you for watching us. and look out for our next episode.
Next episode, we are talking about loving like Christ. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. So stay tuned. From myself, brother Jotam Puti, Mr. Masego.
What is this? What a gift. No Sister P.
The Sister P. We love you guys and stay tuned. Thank you very much.